we were working on this bandit. This is the last one that we are done. So we'll go on to the next one now. Okay, I don't have the correct password. Let me check. Okay, so now we are logged in to the next one. So it says that the password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt, which contains base64 encoded data. So this is the file, and this is what is present in the file. So this is just base64 encoded data. Now base64 is a type of encoding. That's all it is. And of course, encoding is reversible. It can be decoded. So what I can do is base64 -d for decoding it, data.txt. So the base64 command can be used to encode or decode data. So we use the -d option for decoding. And what do we want to decode? Whatever is present in this file. So when this is decoded, the text we get is that the password is this. So I can copy this. And the password for the next one is stored. Okay. Where all lowercase and uppercase characters have been rotated by 13 positions. So let us check it out. So this is the text. Now this is basically a ciphertext, and it says that all the characters have been rotated by 13 positions. So that's a cipher known as the ROT13 cipher, in which you get the ciphertext by shifting the plain text by a fixed number of characters. Now this number of characters, again, that depends on what how much you want to shift it by. That is also known as the key for this type of encryption. For example, let's say I'm saying that the key is 2. In that case, if I want to write A as the plain text, then the ciphertext becomes A plus 2, which is B C. So A turns to C. Let me go to this website. You'll understand it better there. Rot13.com. So let's say the key is 2 in our example. In that case, that would be rot2. So if I'm writing A, B, C, D now, it turns to, okay, B twice, C, D, E, F. Why? Because all of the characters are rotated by 2 positions. So A becomes C, D becomes F. Similarly, if I do rot13, then all characters are rotated or shifted by 13 positions. So A becomes N, B becomes O, and so on. And when you reach the end, when you reach Z, you turn back we loop around and come back to A. So what you can do to solve this type of thing is you can simply copy this. Now basically what is happening is when you type something in here, this whatever algorithm you selected is applied, and the answer is what you see here. In our case, the text that we had, that already had rot 13 applied to it. In this case, what happened was when we copied and pasted it here, rot 13 was applied again. 13 plus 13 is 26. Since there are only 26 characters, if you rotate a character by 26 positions, you get the original character again. So that is what is happening here. It was already in rot 13. If you apply the same thing again, it goes back to the original text, the plain text. So let's say you have something that's in rot 10 or rot. Okay, let's just take the example of rot 10. So if you apply rot 16 to something that is already in rot 10, you'll get the original answer. So it's like you have to find, let's say, the data you have is in rot x. Then to solve it using this method, you need to find out the complement. So you need to find rot 26 minus x and apply that here. For example, if my data is in rot 10, 26 minus 10 is 16. So I'll apply rot 16 and I'll get the answer. So in this case, rot 13, 13 plus 13 is 26. We apply rot 13 to it again and we get the answer. This is our password for the next level. Okay, so this one is quite interesting. It says the password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt, which is a hex dump of a file that has been repeatedly compressed. Okay, so basically in this one, you have a file data.txt, which it says is a hex dump of a file that has been repeatedly compressed. So this data.txt contains the hex dump. Now, how do we get past this? Any ideas? No? Okay, so there is a command known as xxd. If you take a look at the manual, it says it's used to make a hex dump or do the reverse. And if I scroll down a little bit, the hyphen R option says that this is used for the reverse operation. So what I can do is, now again, this requires me to go to the temp directory and do some stuff. So what I'll do is make dir temp new dir already exists. Okay, I'll just change to that. Okay, what I'll do is, yeah, nothing there. I'll just change to there. And it's d hyphen r, sorry, data dot txt, and I can just store it to a file here. So after we undo the hexing, this is the stuff that we get. Okay, let me just data. Okay, so what I need to do is figure out what kind of file this is. So it says that it's gzip compressed data, so I need to decompress it. Gzip will not work unless the file has a .gz extension, so we need to make that the case. G unzip. Gzip can also be used with a different option, but you can also use g unzip data.gz ls data. So after our decompression, we got another file. This time it's bzip2 compressed data. So simply we'll use bunzip and data. So the new file is now data.out. Okay, so basically in this level it's just multiple compressions and decompressions. So you need to extract the file multiple times. That's all it is. And when you finally do that, you'll get the password for the next level. So I'm not doing the entire thing. You can try it out on your own. You just need to do multiple decompressions. That's all. The password for the next level is stored in bandit pass bandit 14 and can only be read by user bandit 14. Currently, we are logged in as bandit 13. For this level, you don't get the next password, okay? But you get a private SSH key that can be used to log into the next level. Note localhost is host. Okay, so let's see what we have. We have SSH key dot private. If you try to cat it, this is what you see. It says that it's a private key. So how do we use this? No idea. So all you need to do is log into SSH using this file without a password. So when you're logging into SSH, you have two options. Either you can use the password for that user, or you can use the user's SSH private key if you have it. If you don't have it, then of course you need to rely on the password. If you don't have either of those, you won't be able to log in. But if you have any one, then you can successfully log in. So what I'm going to do is SSH bandit 14 at the rate, and I don't have to specify the entire bandit.labs or anything because I'm logging in onto the same server. Hyphen I, because I'm trying to give it a key from a file, so I need to use the hyphen I options just to specify that file, and ssh key dot private. Don't need the port here. Now we are logged in as bandit 14, and you can do that for every level. SSH bandit next level at localhost, but again, then you have to keep in mind that all those logins are like you're logging in through an SSH connection every time, so it creates a long tunnel. If you have a slow internet connection, don't do that. Just exit every individual connection, then connect. The password for the next level can be retrieved by submitting the password of the current level to port 30,000 on localhost. So it says that I need to submit the current level password to this particular port on localhost. So how do I do that? See, we use a tool known as Netcat to handle any connections. And we can do the same thing here. We know what port we need to connect to. We know where we need to connect to. We know what we need to send over that connection. So, okay, there's going to be no files here. So Netcat and localhost 30,000. So you specify the host or the IP as well as the port number, both of which we've done here. Now the connection is open, and if I submit the password, okay, yeah, this is the password for the previous one. Now it said that you need to submit the password for level 14. For level 14, we didn't copy the password because we logged in through SSH. And the password you can find in this file. So this is the password for level 14. I need to submit it here. So when I did that, I got the response saying correct along with the password for the next level. Okay, so I'll just copy this, and again I can okay, just excuse me for a minute. I need to answer the doorbell. Okay. So now it says the password for the next level can be retrieved by submitting the password of the current level to port 30,001 using SSL encryption. So if you're using SSL encryption, that means you can't directly use netcat here. You need to use something else. And now we use the open SSL command. So if you come here, in case you're not familiar with OpenSSL, you can just follow this link and look at the first command that you see here. This is the command that you need to connect. OpenSSL is client connect, and then wherever you need to connect. So OpenSSL is client, and where do you need to connect? You need to connect to localhost 30,001. Okay, so now I need to specify the password. So I get the response correct, and then the next password. Okay, so just like we've done so far, there are quite a few other levels in Bandit as well. I'm not going to be going over all of them because I'd like to encourage you to try those out. They are very, what you can say, they are very helpful. Okay, they are very beneficial. They teach you a lot of good commands and a lot of things about using Linux itself. And these things will especially be useful in CTFs and such. Okay, so now we are going to move on to a different war game, which is Krypton. Okay, so I'm going to disconnect from Bandit and see now. Once I exited from 15, I went back to 14. Why? Because I had connected using SSH and Bandit 15 at the rate localhost. So when you close one connection, you go back to the previous one. That was the case for all three of these. So we need to exit thrice. Now what I can do is, okay, it says the following string encodes the password using base 64. All right, so I'll take this string, and this is the password that I get. Krypton is great. Okay, so this is the password for our first level. All right, so let's log in now. SSH, and the username would be Krypton1 port 2231, and this is the host. Okay, actually missed the one here. So now this should work. Okay, so I'm logged in now. Alright, so it tells us that the password for the second level is in the file crypton2. It is encrypted using a simple rotation. It is also in non-standard ciphertext format. When using alpha characters for ciphertext, it is normal to group the letters into 5-letter clusters regardless of word boundaries. This helps obfuscate any patterns, but this file has kept the plain text boundaries and carried them to the ciphertext. So this does not follow your regular ciphertext rules. So anyways, let's look at the file. Okay, so encryption files are in this different directory. So you can find the files in this Krypton directory, not in the home directory for these users. Okay, so let's go there. Krypton. Okay, so we're going to go to Krypton 1 because that is the level we are currently on. ls, and there is a readme file as well as a file known as Krypton2. So let's try the readme file. Let's see if it has more information. Intended to give hands-on experience with cryptography. Okay, so basically the same thing. Let's try and output this file. Okay, so this is the content that is present in the Krypton2 file. Now, what it says is it's encrypted using a simple rotation. So what can I do to help me solve this? We can use the ROT13 website again. Yes, exactly. I'll just delete this. This was the previous text that we had mentioned here. Just going to remove it. And the current text is this. And as soon as I pasted this through ROT13, got the answer level 2 password rotten. So the password for the next level is rotten. That's what it's telling us. Okay, so all right, SSH Krypton 2 @ localhost and yes. All right, so we've gone on to the next level now. So it says that ROT13 is a simple substitution cipher. Substitution ciphers are simple replacement algorithm. Basically, it's giving you a small explanation here of what a substitution cipher is. That's what it's doing here. And it's saying that in this example, we'll explore a monoalphabetic cipher. It means one alphabet. This level contains an old form of a cipher called a Caesar cipher. So Caesar cipher is, your rotational cipher, and they've given an example. So the plain text is A, and you take a key of, let's say, 6 in this case, right? Only then you'll get G if you take a key of 6. So this is dot 6 in this example. So A becomes G from plain text to ciphertext. And they've given an example that the plain text BAD or bad becomes HGJ in ciphertext. Now they're talking about this level. So the password for level 3 is in the file cryptin3. All right, it is in 5-letter group ciphertext. It is encrypted with a Caesar cipher. So we know that the password for this level is also a Caesar cipher. So it's a rotational cipher. Without any further information, this ciphertext may be difficult to break. You do not have direct access to the key. However, you do have access to a program that will encrypt anything you wish to give it using the key. If you think logically, this is completely easy. So basically, what they are saying is they're telling us that the password is in the file name cryptin3 and that it has been encrypted using a rotational cipher. So we don't have directly access to the key. However, there is a program which will encrypt anything you give it. So let's say I give some of my own custom plain text to that program. It is going to be able to encrypt that using the same key. So when I know the plain text and I see the ciphertext, I can easily figure out what the key is. And using that information, I should be able to decrypt the actual ciphertext and get the password for the next level as well. All right. So there's also some additional information that the encrypt binary will look for the key file in your current working directory. Therefore, it might be best to create a working directory in temp and there a link to the key file. As the encrypt binary runs setuid cryptin3, you also need to give cryptin3 access to your working directory. And they've gone through all the steps for the same as well. All right, so let's go to our terminal and oh, the files are not going to be here. Cryptin and crypt2 because that's the level we are currently on. Now let's see what files we have. Okay, so 4 files are present here. There's a readme, there's a file called cryptin3, there's a key file, and there is a binary known as encrypt. All right, so okay, we'll stop